ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, the $1,000,000 question. How can you ensure that your retirement is not just secure today, but that your retirement is secure for the long term? I sure hope your retirement is long, happy, healthy. But one side effect, one symptom of having a potentially long retirement is your money running out or doing something like that. Inflation eating away at your income in retirement. And there's certain things that you can do to be ahead of it, to be prepared. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you do things correctly and plan correctly, then you can be ahead of this and not be forced to reduce, let's say, your standard of living or be in the poorhouse in retirement. That's what we don't want. So let's talk about this. There are, first and foremost, many things that are built in already to your federal income that will help make sure your income in retirement will last for the long term. One of them is COLAs. Now, COLAs aren't perfect, but they certainly help. Let me explain what we're talking about. So your fixed income, things like your pension, you have your pension, you've got Social Security. These are the big income sources you'll have in retirement that have a COLA. Now, there's other income sources you might have, like the FERS supplement. Okay, if you retire before 62 with a full retirement, then you may get the FERS supplement, which is additional dollars on top of your pension. But just know the supplement does not get any COLAs. So if you retire, let's say at 57, and you're receiving the FERS supplement between 57 and 62, during that time there is no COLAs. That FERS supplement is fixed. It's not going up at all. Okay? And by the way, the pension does not get cost of living adjustments until age 62 either. Okay? Well, let me back up. The FERS supplement goes away at 62, so you never get COLAs on your FERS supplement, but on the pension, you don't get COLAs until 62. So again, if you retire at 57 or 55 or whatever, your pension does not go up. It does not get any adjustments, cost of living adjustments, until 62. Now, the one exception to this is if you're a special provision federal employee. If you're special provisions, then you'll get cost of living adjustments the entire time. Okay? But if you're a normal Fed, you don't get any cost of living until 62. So keep that in mind. Now, Social Security is, of course, a income source you can start anywhere between 62 and 70. You can start at any time. The longer you wait, the more money you get. And fortunately, your Social Security does have a COLA. It goes up every year. You don't have to wait for it. Whenever you start your benefits, it'll start getting the COLAs every year. Even if you're not taking benefits, you're going to get COLAs. And what that means is, let's say your benefit at 62 is $2,000. Even if you don't start your benefits at 62, let's say you start at 63, your benefits at 63 would be increased by the COLA you would have gotten. Okay? So the Social Security actually has very healthy and good cost of living adjustments as a general rule. Now, there's actually one key difference between the cost of living adjustments that your Social Security gets and your pension gets. The Social Security COLAs, or cost of living adjustments, are more generous than the first one. Let me explain how that is. Basically, whatever inflation is, whatever prices go up by, your Social Security will go up by that as well. So let's say if prices go up by 5%, then your Social Security would go up by 5% the next year. That's how it works. You get a bump every year based on inflation. However, the cost of living on your pension, the COLA on your pension, doesn't always do that. And this is how it works. Basically, if inflation is 2% or less, 2% or less, then your pension will match it exactly. Okay? So if inflation is 2%, then your pension will go up by 2%. However, if inflation is between 2% and 3%, then your pension will go up 2%. Okay? So if prices went up by 2.5%, your pension will go up by 2%. So it'll lag just a bit. And if inflation is 3% or higher, your pension will be whatever inflation is minus 1%. For example, if inflation is 5%, you'd get 4. If inflation is 8%, you get 7, etc. So it's pretty close, but if inflation is on the high side, then it might lag inflation just a tad over time. So keep that in mind. So this is my summary of COLAs. We like COLAs. We appreciate COLAs. We'll definitely take it. But just keep in mind the COLAs are not perfect, especially on your pension, and so you need wiggle room. You need some wiggle room in your budget. Okay? If you're on the edge and then one COLA isn't quite as much as inflation, that can be painful for you. You don't want to be on the edge in your budget. Okay? Next, what can you do with your investments to make sure they are comfortable and can actually help you have a long, good retirement? Well, here's one big thing. One huge mistake, especially right now that I'm seeing, is people being too conservative with their money. Some people think that if they're too aggressive, oh man, my money's going to run out because I'm too aggressive. And that, in most cases, is not what people actually err on. Most people err on the side of being too conservative. And let me explain what I mean. If you're, let's say, in the G fund, which if you don't know, it's the most conservative option within the TSP. It's the most conservative way you can be investing in the TSP. It doesn't grow much over time, but it's very, very stable. So if you're in, let's say, primarily the G fund throughout retirement, your investments may look like this over time, right? Not much growth over time. It will be stable. But what if inflation is this over time? Which over time, that is often what it does look like. Where the G fund, what if it doesn't keep up with inflation? Or what if it does keep up with inflation, but you are taking withdrawals out of it? So after withdrawals, you're really depleting your money really, really quickly. That's the sort of problems that happen when you're too conservative in retirement. What you need when it comes to your investments is a plan where you've got some money that is conservative. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any conservative money in retirement. You definitely want some money in things like the G fund, F fund, the safer investments. You do, just not too much over there. You need a balance of some money that's going to be actually growth oriented over time and some money that's going to be stable for you so you can take withdrawals out and actually enjoy your money as well. You need a balance, okay? So when it comes to your investments, have a balance even in retirement to get the growth you need to beat inflation. Make sure you're good for the long-term retirement. Next, and this is huge as well, and it has to do with your investments, and that's how much are you taking out. If you are taking out 20% of your investments every year, your money's not going to last very long, okay? It's just not, even if you get a lot of growth, your money's not going to last that long. A good rule of thumb, just to cut to the chase, is 4%. Now, I've got whole videos on the 4% rule if you want to check that out. And you can read a whole bunch of things on the 4% rule, but just know this. 4% rule is conservative enough so that the odds of you running out of money if you're following the 4% rule is very, very low. Basically zero, very, very small over the normal retirement. So what does that mean? If you have $1 million, $1 million, that means you could spend $40,000 a year as withdrawals from that investments. If you have $500,000, that's $20,000 a year. That's $20,000. That's what the 4% rule is all about, okay? If you spend too much over time, then the odds of you running out of money go up once you start creeping above the 4% rule. Now, if investments do really well over time, maybe you can afford to do more than 4% over time. But again, what if the market doesn't do well in your retirement? We don't know. And so the 4% rule is a good place, especially for planning purposes, to start to make sure that your money is not here just for today, but here for the long term. And really, this is my summary on all of these things. You need to have some margin. You got to have some difference between what you need and what you have. If you are spending every last dollar of your pension, of your Social Security, and you've got no wiggle room at all, and the moment the market has a bad year, or the moment a COLA doesn't exactly do what you want, or whatever it may be, if that's going to put you over the edge and put you in a painful spot in retirement, that's not a fun retirement, at least for me, right? For me, I want a retirement that there's lots of wiggle room, meaning I can use the 4% rule on my investments, and that's plenty. Even if COLAs aren't as generous as I'd like, maybe inflation is high, whatever, then I'd be fine. That's what I want. I personally want, and hopefully you want the same as well. So these are some things you can do to make sure your money isn't just good today, but also good for a long, healthy retirement. I hope that's helpful. Again, I've got tons of videos on all these topics. So go check those out if you want to know more. And if you're looking for help for your federal retirement, go check out the description. We've got tons of services where we help vets just like you maximize what you have. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video.